Welcome back to another issue of Hops Geek News. I am one of your two co-hosts, Mash. Alongside me is the Hoppy Mommy.
The other part of the Hops Geek News, and I am doing great tonight. How are you doing tonight, Mash?
I'm doing great. We're a podcast, sort of, that talks about comic books, movies, TV shows, and beer. And every week we get together, we discuss the news and other random fun topics. Tonight we have some good stuff coming down the pipe. We got
Super beers.
I'm gonna cut that out. I'm sorry. I fucked that up.
Okay.
Tonight we have some Superman and Lois news, Flash news, Muppets news, Falcon Winter Soldier, Willy Wonka.
Is that right?
Ugh. And we also are joined by a good friend of ours, Brad from Common Law Brewing, where we're going to talk about some special recipes of beers that coincide with some superheroes that we're also going to post a poll up and have you vote on which beer is going to get brewed by this brewery. And after that, we're probably going to do potentially a giveaway to where you, once that beer is made, you could get this beer sent to you in a safe and legal manner. And also maybe some other fun swag that Hops Geek News has. We have stickers, we have t-shirts for us, but it's never out of the question to get some t-shirts for you guys. So without further ado, Hoppy, what are you drinking tonight?
I am finishing up my Sidekicks IPA that I drank on our Hops News.
So sick.
It is so sick. A lot of the stuff this brewery does, Kings County Brewers Collection in Brooklyn, New York, they do a lot of superhero themed beers. But like a lot of people nowadays, kind of rip off actually copyrighted stuff. They tend to do very unique stuff. I mean, yeah, you get it. They do superheroes and there's some you get like, oh, I get a Captain America feel, but they don't really rip any of them off. It's all like very unique artwork and it's very badass. And if you're like, I'll end up posting this obviously, but you can see like hops and stuff like in the armor of the superheroes. It's very cool. It's honestly the perfect kind of beer for a podcast like this. And those who don't know, I know we mentioned this, but I think a lot of people don't realize we're under the Hops News umbrella. So we have our Hops News show that's live on Wednesdays. And then Mash and I have our own side project, which is what you're listening to, Hops Geek News. And then Lucky from Hops News has his own side project called Feelin' Lucky. So that's why you might get confused when you pull us up on your podcast places or on YouTube or whatever. So we're all connected. We're all the same and different.
We're all connected. Just search for Geeks. I'm drinking something today when we're recording. It's a special day, and I'm not going to get political about it. The only thing that I want to say is that it's a very special day because we have the first ever woman of color vice president got sworn in today.
First ever woman.
And first ever woman
fucking
vice
crazy.
president, which is even crazier. How we've come and progressed as far as that we have. So I have a Black is Beautiful, which Weathered Souls out there. We've had Marcus on the Hops News show before. We got to talk with him. They're amazing collaboration. This one was brewed by Dissolver with Riverbend Malt House and Craft Peak. And so it's like a big joint collab. It's an imperial stout brewed to support justice and equality for people of color. And this was a movement that it reached all 50 states. It reached out into Europe and all these countries, and it's still going strong as far as I know. And this is something that should never die.
I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. Day was the other day, and I saw a couple breweries actually posting that, these are the proceeds we're donating and where we're donating them to from the Black is Beautiful beer. So it is very much so still going strong.
Black is Beautiful beer, the proceeds went to different charities that benefited people of color, whether it was like NAACP or inner city schools, things of that. Every brewery that got on it, and there are thousands of them at this point.
Mm-hmm. They internationally,
even internationally, they all donated to a really great cause. So I figured today was a monumental day. So once again, if you're on YouTube,
to crack that one open,
you can kind of see it. I'm in Gotham City tonight because our guest is Common Law and Batman Law. Anyways, that's kind of what we're done. However, let's slide into our next segment. Segue.
All right. So this one, I actually don't think I fucked up last week. I know I'm always the only one saying anything here, but this is also going to be our I will look into this for next week's segment in a way. Ooh. So the Hilary Swank movie came up because we were talking Cobra Kai and Karate Kid. And it was discussed that maybe it was a Disney Channel movie. I did not think it was. I looked it up. It definitely was not, but it was a huge flop.
Don't they have like a
And it
karate
only got
movie
7.
anyways on Disney Channel? I feel like though, so I can see the mistake.
Probably, I don't know. Well, I feel like I knew it wasn't because I remember when it came out, and I know you guys are younger than me.
All right, 90s Disney was dope.
We never had cable growing up.
You never seen it. Have you watched the movie that is Brink or Smart House or Xenon? Okay,
I've never even heard of any of those. I had to go to sleep at my friend's house to watch Snick.
Back in my day, I had to march up in a hurricane both ways.
Well, that was just because we didn't have cable. No.
With a kayak. Yeah.
I had a black and white TV that I had to get up to turn off.
You were born in the 30s, so, you know.
Jesus.
Anyways, I haven't been watching much lately, aside from the inside of my eyelids and football. You're going to probably see a lot more somber mood from me next week because I fully expect the Packers to lose because Tom Brady is just the destroyer of fucking dreams. And so if you're listening to this when this releases, just know I'm in a dark place in life. But in the meantime, go Pack, go. So I can't contribute much to this because I really haven't watched hardly anything. What have you watched or read? I haven't
watched too much. I watched Iron Man with my 8-year-old, so we're getting her started. She's only watched the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and Thor Ragnarok are the only 3 she'll watch, and she'll watch them on repeat.
Don't show her Thor: The Dark World.
We introduced her to the first Iron Man. So next up is Hulk. I actually have to find that DVD because it's not on Disney Plus.
Look, I got a movie you should introduce her to.
Other than
called
that,
Batman v Superman.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that to my kids. Oh, heavens to Betsy. Since I was born in the 30s, that's something I say. So I am still rewatching Supernatural because, again, I have a problem. And I was thinking about it today. And I feel like part of my issue with Supernatural is they wrapped up so many of the character stories so beautifully in season 15. And then COVID happened in the last 7 episodes. They're like, fuck you. So that's why I'm rewatching. It has now become my comfort show, but I need to stop falling asleep to it because the other night I had a dream that my mom sold her soul to a devil to get a J. Wakefield Brewing sticker.
Oh, she probably did that. You just have no idea.
I mean, the stickers are fabulous. I fell asleep in a J. Wakefield t-shirt, so I don't know if that was why.
She was in our chat tonight on Hops News, and she was talking about like Go Bucks. So she definitely sold her soul.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
A soul
Go
at this
Bucks.
Point. Yeah,
she doesn't care about the Bucks. She's a Dolphins fan.
She's doing it to hurt me. And it hurt me.
All right, but I did read some stuff. I read my latest Oblivion song, which those are way too short. I need to hold them and like read them at once, but it's hard. And I did find my first one. I thought I lost it. And then I went to eBay, not because I would sell it, but I was curious. And they're not really selling for much. So whatever. But I also
it's tough in this economy.
I also did get the first Eternals of the new
I did too, actually. I just haven't read it yet.
So I did read it. The movie is coming out in November 2020. It was very interesting. I'm not going to spoil anything because I think it's something a lot of people are going to want to read, including yourself soon.
I forgot I had that. Wow.
But yeah, Iron Man makes a cameo. I did not realize the main character was going to be Rob Stark. I think I did know that.
Yeah,
but
Richard
I didn't remember.
Madden. He's going to be in it. Yep.
Yeah. So this guy right here, if you're watching on YouTube, is Rob Stark. And Jon Snow is also going to be in it playing Black Knight.
Things go a lot better. Oh, wow. Look at that. Kit Harington playing another knight.
Let's see how that works.
Goes better for him this time.
But these are Jack Kirby characters, and he is a Disney legend. And he was that Soul Easter egg I mentioned a few episodes ago. And I'm a complete asshole because I said if you don't know who he is, you shouldn't be listening to this. But you may not know who he is. There you go. He's a Marvel legend.
Words.
I know. I don't know. I like re-listen. I'm like, geez, what a bitch.
Harsh. Oh my God. Anyways.
All right. So back to you.
For a new co-host. One who's not so angry.
Tim, you're up.
Oh man, I can't wait to have Tim. WrestleMania week is going to be lit.
Yes. My friend Tim is going to make a cameo one day.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. But we do have breaking news in the meantime. Like I said, mostly Hoppy has some breaking news. I have a couple things. She went crazy with it. I've been really unproductive lately. Wow.
I just want to deliver to the people what they deserve.
Give them. I'm a man of the people. I'm going to give it back to you, the people. Thank you.
Sean Connery?
No, it's The Dark Knight Rises. It's Bane. Come on. What's wrong with you?
Oh, that was Bane. You sounded like Sean Connery.
Well, that's kind of what anyways.
You had to have
Superman
something.
And Lois was going to be coming to your screens next month. And it's going to be a 2-hour premiere. So if you're into that, I have fallen off the wagon for CW shows, but Superman Lois is coming. 2-hour premiere. It's gonna blow my socks off. I'm sure it won't.
You just had a baby.
Yeah, whatever.
Or two.
However, this is gonna get my wife excited because I can't. Oh no. 5 seasons of the original Muppets TV shows coming to Disney, according to their Twitter account. The Muppets, they're bringing their shows. My wife's a big Muppets. I've never seen the appeal of the Muppets. I don't know why.
Neither. Well, kind of.
Kermit the Frog here. I don't know. I never got.
Anyways, that was good. That was much better than your Bane.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not muffled, but Muppets coming to Disney Plus. We'll give it a watch. I'll give it a watch because my kids like it, especially. There's that one. What is it? The Muppets 2 with Jason Segel, who's like my spirit animal. I guess I always get compared.
Oh yeah, he brought the Muppets back.
Yeah, with Constantine.
I never saw the second one though with Tina Fey.
You're number 2. That's the only thing.
Didn't he like buy Jim Henson's house or Jim Henson's house?
Oh, I have no
idea.
I
think he's like a super Muppets fan.
I loved him in, Forgetting Sarah Marshall. That's like one of my all-time favorite.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that's a good one.
Love it. And I haven't seen him like since. I feel like. And How I Met Your Mother. God, that's my comfort show. If we skip the last season. But I digress. What do you have for some news?
My news. So Falcon and Winter Soldier is coming out March 19th. So they finally have an official date. We knew it was March, but we didn't know the exact date. So the WandaVision finale is going to be March 5th. So we have 1 week of nothing.
Oh
so
my
I'm
God. You mean
wondering
I have to
though
sit
if
there? Jeez.
I know. What will we do for that Friday? But I am wondering though if they'll throw in a Marvel's Legend recap for Bucky and Sam on March 12th to prepare us for Falcon and Winter Soldier. So we shall see. WandaVision is the highest rated MCU project on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't really think they care, but I still find it interesting. Or I don't think they really matter, but I still find it interesting.
It's so weird.
World, yeah.
Because anybody can go on and be a reviewer on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's so subjective and
right. And often that doesn't necessarily project the opinions of the majority.
No, it doesn't, because Batman v Superman is a good movie.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so more pictures of Spider-Man 3 have emerged, one of which shows that there is at least one scene that takes place during Christmas. Normally, I don't find this stuff newsworthy, but
3 a Christmas movie?
I personally don't think it's going to be a Christmas movie, but apparently there's going to be one scene that is very obvious. The outside of this donut shop or whatever is based at Christmas. Now, you look at Wonder Woman, though, and they had like an end credit scene and it was Christmas time. So you don't know that it's necessarily going to be a Christmas movie.
Peter Parker, I'm rioting.
Oh, God. Okay. But the planned release date right now that's not set in stone is December 17th, 2021.
That's not happening.
So I'm thinking with having a Christmas scene, it's like you're saying there's a chance.
December of 2022 is probably the more realistic. But they've been filming, so I could be mistaken.
They have been filming, but I don't believe anything is set in stone until
Black
it comes out.
Widow was coming out like 7 years ago, so...
Right, exactly. And like that one's done. Okay, so a prequel to Willy Wonka is being worked on.
Make it stop.
I think you actually posted this on the Twitter page. So Tom Holland is being considered for young Wonka, but this isn't going to be coming out until like March 2023.
It should never come out. This should never see the light of day unless we're getting why Grandpa Joe's such a lazy piece of shit. This should never come out.
I think a lot of people agree.
Why do we?
And the sequel with Depp was terrible.
Depp? Yeah, they tried this as like a kind of as a loose prequel with Johnny Depp, and God, no, Willy Wonka doesn't need a prequel. Not everything.
Well, and they called the Johnny Depp one Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So I thought it was a sequel at first. I thought it was that Johnny Depp was going to be Charlie.
Well,
but this would be a prequel, so at least it'll be different.
Hold on, I've never actually seen that movie in a long time. So Johnny Depp wasn't Charlie.
No, he was Willy Wonka.
A stupid movie. What a stupid.
It was totally a remake.
Disney, you're not hurting that bad. You don't need to do this. You don't need it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
So, Flash is coming back March 2nd. So they still need to wrap up last season. Thor: Love and Thunder has begun filming this week, according to Chris Hemsworth Instagram, because he had to come home from vacation to get ready to go film.
Which Matt Damon's in. Hold on, Matt Damon.
We still don't know who he is, right?
I think they said he's reprising his role. So, the Asgardian actor.
Oh, so the random Asgardian who played Loki. Okay.
He's probably going to, like, Matt Damon in cameos is freaking amazing. So I'm excited for that. He's going to pop up.
I need to go back and watch Dogma.
Matt Damon. And he's going to pop up randomly.
What else do I have? Or is that it? Joe Exotic did not get a Trump pardon.
How'd you almost forget this? I can't believe we live in a world where Steve Bannon got a pardon, but my boy Joe Exotic. They were waiting outside of the prison in a Hummer stretch limousine because they were so certain that Trump was pardoning Joe Exotic.
Are you kidding?
They were waiting outside of a prison, like his team, with a stretch Hummer limo and all this stuff because they were so certain Trump was pardoning him, and he didn't get pardoned.
Wow.
So you know what, Joseph Biden, I challenge you. Make your.
You know why I bet he didn't get pardoned? I bet it was that bitch Carol Baskin.
I bet you it was all Carol Baskin's fault. Speaking of which, okay. They actually took away all the animals from the exotic farm. I forget that other guy who's like.
Oh, I saw that on New Year's Eve.
They're taking all those tigers and stuff, but my boy Joe didn't get freed. It's crap. Lil Wayne got pardoned.
Free Joe. I did see that.
Lil Wayne posted a hype song about the Packers, and so I mean I'm cool with that. But Joe Exotic.
Lil Wayne. All right.
No love. Come on.
So Disney Plus is going to be doing a Turner and Hooch series reboot.
I don't think I've ever seen.
They're rebooting everything.
I don't know. Of course,
I feel like kids just need to watch the old ones. A new Marvel documentary is coming to Disney Plus called Behind the Mask, and that comes out February 12th.
Read a comic book.
It's like, did you ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm? With Larry David?
Yeah.
And he's like looking in the mirror and he's like, read a fucking book.
That's me and myself every day.
Well, he's talking to himself. Yeah.
Well, yeah. You know, I'm just like, you're going to be the best today. This is you. This is your day.
Read a fucking book.
By the way, they're rebooting Hercules as a live action. I don't know if we've ever talked about that.
Hercules. I think we mentioned that 1 week.
Yeah. Let's just let the past die. Take a book out of Kylo Ren. Take a page out of Kylo Ren's book. Let the past die.
Yeah, but we all watch it because we're familiar with the characters.
We all watch it because we're starved for content and we hate ourselves.
I'll just rewatch Supernatural again. I don't know what's wrong with me. Okay, so despite Disneyland being a COVID center or whatever it is right now, they are still moving forward with the Avengers Campus project, and they revealed some of what to expect this week. So Tom Holland is actually very much so involved in that. So if you're interested, it's worth a Google. The Spidey ride looks a smidge like the Spider-Man ride at Islands of Adventure.
Somebody's getting sued.
But, you know, I'd love to see them duke it out in court over the Marvel characters. Anyway, I can't wait to go back to Disneyland and see what all they have, because we're never going to get that shit in Orlando except for Guardians of the Galaxy, which I'm still very excited about.
Very true.
So that's about it. If you saw anything we messed up on any of our episodes, please call us out, DM us, and we will do a virtual shout and a chug to you. Not a chug. I didn't say chug. I take that back. I rescind that immediately.
I'll do a virtual
cheers.
Nope, she said virtual chug. No takesy backs.
Nope.
Well,
you know what? The first one who calls us out, because we haven't gotten called out. Well, your friend yelled and told you.
Actually calls us out. Yeah, that doesn't count. If somebody calls us out, I'll chug.
There you go. You heard it here, folks.
What? I'm already offering my body as a sacrifice for the Packers. I got to get off this. It's so much anxiety over sports. It's stupid. But we are going to be with Brad from Common Law, our good friend. But first, quick ad from the Potato Lady, who is a podcast that reviews other podcasts. So I'm going to let her tell a little about herself. It's really great. We already planned it, actually. I talked with her. We are planning a Potato Con. It's really just for podcasters all to meet up, and we're all just going to have a potato bar and eat potatoes and share our podcast.
I like potatoes.
Really great concept, and I'm going to let her tell her about herself. So cheers.
Hi, I'm Bex, also known as Potato Lady Podcast Reviews. Every weekday, I tweet out reviews of indie podcasts. My goal is to unite listeners with their next favorite show, like the one you're listening to now. I also have a newsletter that provides links to reviews, sneak peeks, ad space, and more. So follow me on Twitter at BexGoose, that's BEXGOOS, to start getting weekdaily reviews. Find all the info you need, including the link to sign up for my newsletter, in the thread pinned to my profile. And feel free to get at me if you need a recommendation. And now, back to your show.
Everybody, welcome back. We are here with an esteemed guest. He has always joined us. I like to think he's become like family at this point, because, you know, he's one of those people I always enjoy having conversations with, whether it's about beer, whether it's just about anything. Yes, I'm
Yes,
repping
you
the
guys have
Common Law
matching
tee.
shirts.
We have matching t-shirts. We coordinated this tonight.
Yes.
However,
That's just adorable.
Brad, who is one of the co-owners of the soon to hopefully be opening in 2021 Common Law Brewing in Spring Hill, Tennessee. If you're in that area, you can get some really amazing beers. They're brewing some really great stuff. They're ramping up production. Things are getting serious. And Brad, how are you, man? I just love having you on. I love talking to you.
I'm good, man. It feels like I haven't been on in a while. It's been busy life for the last few months. So
yeah, what do you got, like a newborn?
Haven't made an appearance in a little bit.
Yeah, kids tend to slow you down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so two kids under 3, starting a brewery. I have a day job that has been kicking my ass.
That's definitely one of those. Yeah, like you still gotta.
I still have to do my normal job. So last night at like 11:15, I was still out in the garage, kegging beer and cleaning stuff. So it's definitely been a busy time this few weeks, man. Hey, if you want something done, man, you just got to get your hands dirty and do it.
That's true. Hard work, and eventually it's going to pay off. Yeah, man, I'm excited. I know we were kind of talking the other day. You might have found a place. Fingers crossed it works out. Get all the permits needed, and eyeballing a summer 21 release, and one that we hope to be down there, hopefully, for if all goes according to plan, and COVID restrictions, all that kind of stuff. But we're gonna get down there one way or another to share that special moment with you, because it's been a long time coming.
And hopefully by that point, I mean, vaccines starting to roll out and all that good thing. So hopefully, we'll be getting a little closer to normal. Hopefully by that time,
normal.
Obviously
nobody even knows what that means anymore.
Whatever normal may be at that point, that's what we're hopefully at. And what are you drinking? What are you sipping on here tonight? Well, we'll dive into a little bit. What are we drinking?
Yeah. So I rummaged through my my beer fridge, which if anybody that's listening has seen my beer fridge, you'll know that it's normally pretty well stocked from a combination of friends in the industry and my beer travels. And realized that I had a beer in the back of the fridge that had been in there for a few months that I didn't realize was still there, and it was the last one of its kind. So I've got my background may buzz it out for a minute, but a Pontoon Superfruit Smiggles edition. So anybody that's not familiar with the glory that is Rainbow Smiggles from Pontoon, so it's their Berliner Weiss that's made with Trick cereal, Skittles. I think it's got some cherry, some pineapple, some vanilla in it. Really good beer. Definitely one that generated an absolute ton of hype when it came out. So this is the super fruit version of that. So they take that beer and add even more fruit to it, but they don't re-ferment that fruit. And so it's kind of a cross between like fresh fruit juice and the original version of Smiggles. So it's a little sweeter, a little more fruity on the front end. Definitely an excellent beer. They do a whole series of super fruits where they take existing beers or take new beers and just amp up the fruit levels on them. The downside to them is I usually can't send them to you guys because if they get
explode.
Warm, they will explode.
As I found out when I was trying to get you some of that hard kombucha, it was still a little warm out and it blew up. I have managed.
We haven't gotten that one in Florida, but we've gotten lots of Pontoon in Florida lately. We got the regular Smiggles and
the Pontoon has started some pretty serious distribution in Florida. If anybody that's in Tennessee is listening, they're going to start distribution in Tennessee next week. So they are starting to kind of get their tentacles all through the Southeast. They're also celebrating their 3rd anniversary, starting in like 2 weeks. So they got tons of like awesome vintage bottles coming back out, a bunch of like VIP only pours at the tap room, bunch of awesome glassware. The artwork that they did for the 3rd anniversary was awesome, and they've got like t-shirts and glassware with it on it. So you guys take a look at what they have. If they got anything you want, just let me know. I'll grab it while I'm done there.
Oh, I'm gonna have to. You're like my dealer. I have the brownie batter bottle. I'm like really clean.
Yeah, right. I mean, you got more of that
Pontoon? Like, what's up? I have the brownie batter. I'm saving for a really, really special moment. So I got that sitting in the fridge. I have
so
one.
That's one of the vintage bottles coming out, and then they've got I think 3 or 4 of the variants of it coming out again. And then they also have Staycation, which is another stout that they did that, in Sean's own words, is the best stout they've ever made. I have a bottle of Staycation. I haven't opened it yet, so I can neither confirm nor deny that rumor. But it's supposed to be really good. And it was like they did it in collaboration with a bottle shop. And when it came out, literally the only place you could buy it was at that one bottle shop. And it was super limited. So
nice. I just can't wait to get to that brewery because we had him on our Hops News podcast, which we do live Wednesday nights. And when he said that they have classic German beers on tap next to these like super fruity beers, I was like, I want to go there and get, try every single beer you have, because if they're doing such amazing work while being so creative, they're probably nailing the shit out of those classic German styles as well.
And that's kind of their, their model. They're in the process of opening a second facility too. And the new facility is going to be an even bigger brew house and is going to brew a lot of their core stuff. And then the tap room that they have now with the system that they're on is going to be just rolling off barrel ages and spontaneous fermenting stuff and a bunch of the really like experimental stuff that they like to do. They're actually, as part of their 3rd anniversary releases, they're releasing their first wild beer, their first spawn beer. And it's actually fermented with yeast that they captured from a botanical garden that's like down the street from the brewery. So like it's a legit like Georgia native yeast. So I know they're super excited about it. I'm excited about it. Hell, I love spontaneously fermented beers, and I don't think I've ever had a bad beer from Pontoon. So I'm sure if that one made it into a bottle, they did that experiment like 2 years ago. So it took a while for them to get the bottles with it. If this is the one they picked to start that series, I've got no doubt whatsoever it'll be awesome.
Yeah, but I guess we should say what we're drinking real quick, Mash, because we're both drinking.
Sean's a busy man, and he's one that I want to get on here at some point, but I'm kind of waiting for his life to die down. Because he's equally as nerdy as we are, and I know he's into a lot of, I feel like, Dragon Ball Z, all of it. You name it, I'm like, man, he blows my mind. But yeah, we're drinking. I'm on a float, and that's kind of how I feel drinking this beer. Anything from Pontoon, if it goes away from my green screen. If you're watching on YouTube, I got Gotham City behind me because Batman is the law, and I'm common law tonight.
Yeah, this is I see what you did there. Okay.
Yeah, this is delicious.
So this is a fruited Berliner Weiss with lavender, pear, pineapple, and lactose. And it sounds like such an odd combination. And Brad actually prepped us before we even drank it, but like it works. I mean, it would be much better if we were on a float poolside, but this is fantastic. I really like it.
Bath bomb. Like I mentioned before, it really smells like a bath bomb.
It smells so good.
I'm bougie. I like to take baths.
And I feel like I've either had something like this before. I'm ignoring you. I hear you.
It's relaxing. It makes you want to just like chill. The lavender.
I always put a lavender bath salt in the tub with my 3-year-old. Like it's actually going to work and calm him down. It doesn't do anything.
The color. If you're watching on YouTube again, this is the color. Nice color. It's really good. It's wicked good, man. Delicious.
I had to do it with my shark glass because it didn't end well for that one kid on a float.
Oh, it did not. Do not to be confused. I'm on a boat.
There, if you're watching on YouTube, I give you a lovely picture there. So we're getting very sidetracked, Brad. Okay, so we've had you on before in October. We did the pumpkin beer episode, which I could have kept asking you question after question after question.
Oh, always.
But we had.
I still do. I hit up Brad and I'm like, I'm brewing my own beer. What do I do? How do I do this?
What do I do?
He's like,
where do I start?
He sends me like all these resources. Like, man, he's helped me a ton. So. Yeah.
I mean, your shit inside and out, but I don't think we got from you though, was a little bit of your origin story. And maybe we should start with Geek and then we'll go into beer, because generally Geek starts before beer. My origin story didn't, but most people's do.
Sometimes.
No, my Geek started real early. So I'd say probably my intros to geekiness, like a lot of kids, were probably a combination of comic books, which I got into probably like late elementary school, I would guess, and Dungeons and Dragons, which I got into in middle school. That's how we used to spend every day at lunch during middle school, was playing Dungeons and Dragons at the lunch table. So, continued doing that for for years and years. One of my first jobs once I was old enough to work was actually at a gaming store. So I worked at a store that sold rule books for Dungeons and Dragons and sold Magic cards and sold, regular board games and sold like Warhammer 40K and Warhammer Fantasy Battle miniature games. So that was one of my, one of my first jobs. And
did you bring home a paycheck ever?
I spent most.
That's what I mean.
You're allowed to spend your paycheck on anything, right?
Right.
So it was mostly for me, Magic cards and Warhammer 40K was what I was spending most of my paycheck on at that point in time. But have kind of continued. Obviously, still a big fan of Marvel Comic Universe and some of the DC movies. Pull out a graphic novel or something and read it. Definitely a big fan of some of the shows that have popped up recently that are based on comics or graphic novels that are a little more obscure, but then kind of like take the world by storm. Stuff like obviously The Boys, Utopia, shameless plug for Utopia if you guys haven't watched it. It's fantastic. The US version of it that they just put out this past year is really good. I'm just starting on the UK version of it, which came out a couple of years ago. It actually has 2 seasons. So I'm super stoked to kind of work my way through that one. I don't really play D&D anymore. Occasionally I'll play a game of Pathfinder, which is about the closest thing. I also don't play Warhammer 40K anymore. I finally sold my last set of miniatures about 6 months ago. Between kids and brewing, I no longer had time to play tabletop war games that take like 5 or 6 hours to play a game.
Getting an hour to yourself is unheard of, let alone 5 hours for gaming.
Exactly, no time. So, obviously, like any other dude in his 30s, I've spent my fair share of time on video games, on computer games. The only thing I still play regularly is Civilization. I'm a big nerd when it comes to turn-based strategy games. So I've played the hell out of some Civ 6. I'd probably be ashamed to say what my hour count is on that game, but I know it's at least 4 digits, if not 5. And it's usually like everybody's in bed, like, oh yeah, I'm about to play some Civ for 3 turns, which is what everybody says when they play Civ. And then like 9 hours later, after you've played 30 turns, you're like, oh shit, I was only supposed to play 3 turns. But yeah, so plenty of geekiness. My wife will probably tell you that pretty much anything that I approach with that same level of passion and geekiness. Which is probably one of the reasons that I really enjoy the beer community. Kind of segue into the beer origin story. So big fan of beer. If I was standing up and you could see my stomach, you'd realize I was a big fan of beer. But it's, kind of started just like everybody else does, probably in beer, college, somebody throws you a natty light at a party and, now you're drinking beer.
That Bud Heavy, baby.
I love my Bud. Well, I used to love my Bud Heavy, not anymore. Forced to have it, sorry.
Yeah. So, kind of transitioned from there. I started working in a bar, and that's what kind of exposed me to a little bit more craft beer. There's also a restaurant we used to go to a lot in Knoxville called Barley's, that really good little pizza place, but they had a good craft beer selection. And so beers like Stone Arrogant Bastard and Rogue Dead Guy was and still is one of my favorites from kind of classic craft beers. And then, through kind of some odd twists of fate after I got into college and everything, ended up meeting some people who taught me how to make wine. And so that's actually how I got started fermenting, was making wine. I don't drink a ton of wine. My wife likes wine. I had stuff readily available to make it. So I was like, we'll do it. Well, then for Christmas one year, my wife bought me a beer kit because she was like, well, you like beer. If you can make wine, surely you can figure out how to make beer. Fast forward 10 years, I'm on the verge of opening a brewery. So
she sits there at night like, why did I buy that kit so long ago? What is wrong with me?
It's really funny though when you talk to people that are in beer. Obviously a lot of professional brewers at some point in time started out in brewing. Sean that we were talking about at Pontoon. Yeah. Even the recipe from brownie batter. I know he told you guys when you had him on the show. That's literally one of his home brewing recipes that they've refined and scaled up to be a big beer. And now it's literally on the cover of Beer Connoisseur magazine.
Wow, that's awesome.
You can start things in your garage. And look at what
Yeah.
happens. You too could be on the cover.
Exactly. So, and it's funny though, when you start talking to people, how many people started out with like the little, like 1 gallon Mr. Beer kit. And now they're
I have a 5-gallon Northern Brewer. That's the one I got.
Yeah. That's actually, I mean, that's a good sized kit, man.
Yeah. My wife hooked me up. She did.
My first beer I ever brewed was a 1 gallon kit. And so, 1 gallon is only like 10, 12 ounce bottles of beer or something like that. And I think I ruined 2 of them because I didn't get the cap on right. So basically I spent a month of work to get like 8 bottles of beer. And like, if I put it up for 2 weeks in the closet to let it carbonate, and I pulled it out and like I popped the first one and it wasn't carbonated. So I had to wait 2 more weeks. And I finally got one and opened it and it was terrible. Like, I mean, it was just bad. And like I forced myself to drink the rest of them because I was like, by God, I made this.
Through tears, he's like, this is good.
And they were awful.
Damn it.
It was one of those I probably should have like, chugged a 6-pack of Budweiser and then like used those as a shake. Like maybe that'll work for something like that. But yeah, so that's how I got started fermenting, and then Common Law kind of came about a few years ago. Started kicking around the idea of starting a brewery. Kind of fortuitously, not long after that, met the person who's now my brewing partner, Mark, and kind of realized pretty quickly that he and I were kindred spirits who had very similar thoughts about how we wanted to approach a professional brewery, what kind of beers we wanted to have on, what we wanted to experiment with. And he and I kind of complement each other in terms of personality and skill set. And so, kind of fast forward a little bit in that friendship, and we realized like, hey, we could make this work. We live in an area that's a little bit devoid of craft beer, despite the fact that it's loaded with the demographics that you would normally look for craft beer.
Being around outside,
it's definitely something surprising. Yeah. I mean, so Spring Hill, people that aren't familiar with it, so it's about 30 or 40 minutes south of Nashville, just straight down 65, just south of Franklin. So Franklin is normally the town, near Nashville that people know. Spring Hill's a little further south from that. So Spring Hill has about 50,000 people in it, but it's in Williamson County, just like Franklin. The median income here is not much different than it is in Franklin, which is one of the wealthiest cities in Tennessee. It's a younger demographic, lots of families with kids, lots of people who move from cities that have a good brewing scene. But from where I live, my house in Spring Hill, the minimum that it takes me to get to a brewery is about 30 minutes in any direction. So we literally just we have a couple of bars in town that are craft beer focused bars, so you can have some variety on tap, but to actually get beer that's made on site, that you can meet the guys that made it, half an hour. And who really wants to drive half an hour, have 3 or 4 beers, and then drive back half an hour?
See, in Orlando though, like I live in East Orlando, I can get to Sideward in probably 20 minutes, but that's the closest one. Because we're over by UCF, and the commercial real estate over here is so expensive. Like there was a brewery, I basically like befriended these guys, like basically latched onto them and was like, because they were pouring at a festival, and they're like, oh, we're going to open in East Orlando. And they were scouting out property. And like one of the places they looked at was like right next to my comic book shop. And I about lost my mind. I was like ready to introduce the two, because I even ran into my comic book guy at this freaking beer festival. So he's into beer. And they're like, it's so expensive in that area. And then they ended up, opening up inside another brewery, which is Castle Church, which I love. And it's great, but it's like at least 25 minutes to get there. And so, even Orlando, we got Brass Tap and whatnot, but
I have a brewery.
It sucks. I have friends that are like 5 minutes from breweries, and I'm just like, lucky son of a bitch.
I have one that's up the
Fortunately, my husband doesn't really drink as much as I do. So what were you saying?
I have one that's like 5 minutes from me, but they just opened, and they're not bad, but they're
still getting it together.
Yeah, all the good ones are in Boise, so I got to go 45 minutes. And so, of course, if like the wife and I go, then one of us has to only drink 1 or 2, and normally like it's me who drinks more, because she's not as big a drinker. But however, she likes like Western Collective. They have really good wines, or Turn Up the Beats at Woodland Empire. So then she'll drink, and it's just kind of one of those things. Yeah. So it sucks.
Yeah. It does work out that my husband doesn't drink as much as I do, because he always drives. But then we went to Tactical one year on New Year's Eve. It was the first New Year's we didn't have kids, like, I don't know, since high school. and he really likes hazy IPAs, and their hazy IPAs are very high ABV. And let's just say $80 Uber ride and trying to find our car the next morning was a lot of fun.
Oof.
But we made it home safe, and we Ubered home.
Yeah.
So
hey, it's better to spend $80 on Uber than $2,500 on a DUI.
on a DUI, absolutely. Or hear your wife give you shit for getting a DUI after, because every time he ordered a beer, I'm like, that's 8%, right? Yeah. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because we were intending on being home by midnight, but the tactical guys, they just throw such a good party. Yeah, it was such a great time.
They're veterans. We know how to party.
They are. And it was funny. My husband ended up breaking a glass, and then they gave him another beer in a plastic cup, and I lost my mind laughing. And they're like, no, we're switching everybody to plastic right now, because where it is in Baldwin Park. And they actually they didn't do it this year. This was obviously the year before. They do a whole thing at midnight with fireworks and everything. So it was so people could get beers to go. And I was like, sure you did.
You should.
I went there a couple days later, and I tipped the shit out of them and bought a shirt and was like, this is because my husband broke a glass. I'm so sorry. We were both a mess. It was a great time. Okay. So let's move on to these.
Normal thing.
Yeah.
Let's move on to these superhero beers. So I loved the amount of detail you put into some of these beers. So we're combining your passion for beer and your passion for geek culture and superheroes. So let's hear what you got.
Brad went ahead.
So this idea just kind of came up. Match and I were just kind of talking about random shit one night, and I don't even remember what started the conversation, but we were like, it'd be cool if we had like a bunch of superhero themed beers. And I was like, okay, throw out a list of superhero names, and I'll come up with a concept, for a beer for each of those superheroes. And he's like, man, I love that idea. And then we kept talking about it, and I was like, well, and then we could ask people like which one of those sounds most interesting, and then like, hell, why not? Let's brew it. let's see
it
how
evolved.
it actually
went like out. Just from
like if we're gonna do it,
let's do this thing, and
let's do it. And so like I think the next day he sent me a list, and he's like, here's 5 superheroes. Let's come up with something with these 5, and then like we'll do our segment on it. So excuse me, the 5 that he sent me were Aquaman, Flash, Daredevil, which that was my only stipulation, is that I wouldn't do it unless the list included Daredevil, Scarlet Witch, and then Wolverine. So nice mix of heroes there. A couple of DC, some Marvel.
I tried to get one for Hoppy, and then of course I took
I got
Flash.
Got the nice superhero work.
I was actually going to give a nod to MASH for including Daredevil, because for those who don't know, his brewery is legal themed, common law, and Daredevil is an attorney. He's an avocado at law. Yeah. So I like that addition.
Yeah, and that was kind of the stipulation. And we're actually, so this is not something that anybody knows. So if you guys want some exclusive information behind the scenes of the brewery, so one of our plans within the brewery. So, obviously on the bar, you have a bar top, but then the bar has a face to it, that normally not a lot of people pay attention to. It's kind of under the bar, but our plan for the face of it is to actually take Daredevil comic books, separate the pages, kind of layer the pages over each other to form like a gigantic Daredevil mural, and then epoxy over them so that they're protected. And so that will be like the underside.
That is gnarly. Yeah.
So, we think it's awesome. It was one of those like, do I do it with Daredevil? Do I do it with Harvey Birdman? And I think people thought Daredevil was probably a little more generally palatable than Harvey Birdman was.
Well, I would also say Daredevil is probably more well known too, thanks to the Netflix show. So it kind of gets, everyone's going to know Daredevil, whether you're a comic book nerd like we are, or you're kind of more casual viewer, thanks to Marvel.
Right. Well, and the fact that Ben Affleck played him not that too.
We don't talk about that here.
I don't even want to talk about the Martha one, but we talk about that here.
Martha, because Batman v Superman's a good movie. Anyways, I digress.
You have Michonne too. Well, I think I've even said this before. Michonne's another comic book character that she's a lawyer in the comic books.
Oh yeah, Walking Dead, she is.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, there are actually several throughout. There are some that are kind of like defunct comic book heroes now that aren't currently involved in the lore anywhere. There were some older ones that were attorneys. Daredevil to me, Daredevil is kind of the quintessential like attorney superhero.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If people think attorney superhero, like Daredevil is who you think about.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, thanks to the movies, the TV show, like it's I think it's kind of drilled it in. Like you said, even for casual fans, they understand that he's
for sure.
that he's an attorney. So.
Even though he doesn't seem to practice very often, he's always doing other things, but he is still I feel like
he's
Foggy holds down the fort.
He's a busy man, and Foggy holds it
he's
down.
A partner.
Because they're a team.
Like, how many partners really work?
That's because they hung their own shingle. That's why he's a partner.
Exactly.
I've actually never read Daredevil comics. I've only seen the show. That's one I should dive into.
Oh yeah, definitely check those out. But so I figured we could just kind of run through each of them. Talk a little bit about which beer we chose, kind of why I thought it lined up really well with kind of the character, or maybe something in the history of the character. And then, like I said, we'll turn it over to see what everybody else thinks. Which one of these kind of stands out to you? Which one do you think we should actually try to make? Some of these, I will tell you right off the bat, some of these are a little easier to make than some of the others.
I am willing to bet I know which ones too.
Yeah, Wolverine would be a little
barrel aged. Yeah.
Anything that goes in a barrel is going to take some time, but some of the other ones are actually fairly easy, and some of them I think would be really interesting to do. So I guess without further ado, we'll hop into the first one, and I guess I can present them if that's cool with you guys, and then we can
go for it.
Let's do it. You're the expert.
So, I don't know if Mash dropped them in alphabetical order. It doesn't look like it. They're like semi-alphabetical order.
I don't know how to read.
So we'll start with Aquaman. I think Aquaman is an underappreciated superhero.
He doesn't get enough love.
That was Matt's most underappreciated guy.
I got him tattooed.
Oh, I'm definitely going to take some shots at Aquaman over the course of this little diatribe too. But Aquaman is in some ways a very underappreciated hero. So for Aquaman, as soon as I saw that Mash had that on his list, the first beer that popped to mind for me was a Goza, just because it's got salt in it. Like, how can you think Aquaman and think ocean and think beer without being like, oh, it's got to have salt in it? So the base had to be a Goza because of the salt. The added advantage to that is traditional German Gozas are fairly weak, just like Aquaman. And so it really kind of lines up on multiple levels. And so it made sense. It really did. So then I started trying to think about, okay, what do we add to a Goza? Like, it's a good beer. I'll drink a base Goza, but like, let's do something fun with it. So for anybody that's not super familiar with Aquaman, his actual name is Arthur Curry, at least in the later retcons of it. So Arthur Curry. So I started looking at that. I was like, I could go for some curry right now. COVID has kind of kept me out of my favorite Indian restaurants. Like, I could really go for some curry. And I was like, well, hell, why don't I just put some in this Goza? And so what we ended up coming up with is a Goza base that has coconut, lime, and curry in it. So it's almost a play with the curry and the saltiness added to the coconut and the lime, get a nice almost tropical flavor to it, but get that weird, kind of exotic spice level. I've had a couple of curry beers. If they're not overpowering, they're really good. It's a really unique flavor. It's almost like putting lavender in beer. If it's done well, it comes off really well. And so, to me, we've got the Goza for all the salt water. We've got the curry worked in because of Arthur Curry. We keep it kind of tropical and beachy with the coconut and the lime to kind of pull the whole thing together and set us up right in front of the ocean. So that one was definitely one of the fun ones to put together, especially once I realized I could take a shot at Aquaman in the process.
Well, he's so underrated, but he's out there cleaning up the oceans. It's a tough job. It's a really tough job.
In real life, he actually is. I actually do commend Jason Momoa for that. He's gave shit to like Star-Lord for like using a single-use plastic bottle. I was like, you go, Aquaman.
Yeah, Star-Lord.
And I will say, is as much as the Aquaman character in the comics has been much maligned over being kind of useless and weak, in terms of the actors who play the characters, he may be the most badass looking superhero.
Momoa. It doesn't get any better than Jason Momoa.
He's Dothraki, of course. Yeah.
Speaking of, fun fact, I don't know if there's any This Is Us fans, but the guy who plays like the actor in the show, like the pretty blonde guy, it's a super depressing show. Like, oh my god.
Oh, I do know who you're talking about.
The blonde guy, he played Arthur Curry.
He was in Bad Moms Christmas.
He was in like Smallville as Green Arrow, and then he also played in the pilot as Arthur Curry. So there's been some beautiful.
Oh, and he's in Bad Moms Christmas. He's getting waxed.
You would
and super fun fact, because I bring everything back to Supernatural. When Jensen Ackles started brewing, it was on his equipment, his brewing equipment. So he brews beer. So he asked if he could store his brewing equipment at Jensen Ackles' house, and then Jensen Ackles and his brother-in-law started brewing beer, and that's how they ended up opening the brewery in Texas.
The handsome man from This Is Us?
No, the handsome man from This Is Us asked if he could store his brewing equipment at his house. And then Jensen and his brother-in-law started brewing, and now they have a brewery just outside of Austin, Texas.
You can't drink beer and be really ridiculously beautiful. So, who knew?
Yeah, I think if we brew this beer, then we need to reach out to that guy to see if he wants to like come be the assistant brewer. Like,
you should definitely do that.
I will like blow up his airwaves.
And then get Jensen Ackles on, because there you go. Well, that's another thing Matt and I are doing. One day we're getting to Family Business Beer Company.
We're gonna go to Austin for a beercation eventually and do a Hops Geek episode.
Austin's got some good stuff.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get there since before I even knew Supernatural had a brewery there, because they got Jester King and Ingenious.
2021 is the year of hopeful travels, but
yes.
Let's move on. Do you want to go in order? You don't have to. You
should move.
Yeah, no, I'll run down through them. I've got them pulled up in front of me, so I'll just kind of go through in the order I've got them on here. The next one maybe not quite so much like in-depth knowledge to it, and this one will probably require a little bit of beer technical explanation. But the next one on here was the other DC on the list. So the Flash. The man known as the Scarlet Speedster. So, to me, it only makes sense for the Flash to be a red ale.
Oh yeah,
makes sense. He's red.
Red streak.
It's kind of
red ale.
It's kind of his defining characteristic. He's red.
I don't know if you guys know this, but he's literally red.
Yeah, and then the other defining characteristic that he has is he's really fast. I'm not sure if you knew that.
Don't say. I think
I've heard he's won a marathon or two.
He likes to say he's the fastest man alive. However, he always gets.
Oh my god! Every season there's somebody who's faster.
Like Usain Bolt's pretty quick. The Flash may be able to take him. Maybe not in the 100, but at least in the 200.
I think there's a chance. You're right.
Yeah, I think he may be able to do it. So when I started thinking about fast. What's fast in the beer world, and anybody that knows a lot about beer knows that there is not much that's fast in the beer world. Beer is kind of a patience thing.
I didn't realize that, honestly.
The exception really though to that is on the yeast side of the world, which is one of the 4 key ingredients to beer. There is a family of yeast called Kvike yeasts that are Norwegian farmhouse yeasts originally. And so these are yeasts that have been around for hundreds of years, literally propagated by individual farmers on their farms and used to brew Norwegian farmhouse ales. So the cool thing about the way these yeasts have evolved and survived is they can handle ridiculous temperature extremes. Because if you think about Norway as a whole, it's cold. Like every time I see pictures of Norway, there's snow everywhere. It looks fucking cold.
It looks like heaven.
Like Norway seems like a great place to live in terms of quality of life. Ain't happening for me. It looks fucking cold.
That's my kind of place. I love it.
Yeah, these guys were brewing and fermenting brewing over an open fire in a kettle. And then the way they would keep the beer warm enough to actually ferment is to essentially just keep it right by the fire. And so even though it's really cold, they were fermenting at really substantial temperatures. So, a typical ale may ferment in the low to mid 60s. A lager is normally in low to mid 50s. So those are your typical fermentation range. Kvike yeast will ferment all the way up to about 105, 110, which is nuts. But if you jump them up there, if you put them at 105, whereas a beer may take 7 to 10 days to ferment generally, a Kvike yeast at 105 will do that same beer in 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
And so it is literally the fastest yeast you will ever find.
What we're talking about.
And they produce some great flavors. Yeah, so they produce some great flavors. So Flash, red ale, but a red ale fermented with Kvike yeast, so that the thing is the fastest red ale ever seen by me.
We just trying to get that out.
You can drink it tomorrow.
Like
brew it today and drink it tomorrow.
Yeah. So, kind of side note, we do some of our New England IPAs with Kvike. If I brew on a Saturday, I can drink that beer on Friday of that following week. That's how, and that's for like an 8.5% double IPA.
Now your Supreme Court Justice is the one that I got to try. Was that
was
what kind of yeast is that?
Yeah, that was a Kvike beer.
Oh,
very
that was
cool. That was fantastic.
That was wicked good. Oh yeah.
So that was one like that beer was fermented at 98 degrees.
Ooh. All right, Nick Lachey, I got you.
Oh God.
Yeah, Nick Lachey would be proud of me.
He would.
All right, so moving on to the next one on the list. This one was like I said, the one I specifically asked for. We had to work Daredevil in here. This one though, when I started, like I asked for Daredevil, like I created my own challenge here. But when I started trying to think of like, stylistically what would make sense here and really trying to line things up, I probably struggled more with this one than I did any of the other ones. But so what I ended up settling on was the beer we were just talking about, the Hazy IPA. And the reason that I did that, the haze, the opacity, when you think about beer, a lot of people think clear beer that you can see through. New England IPAs, if they're done right, you shouldn't be able to see. And Daredevil can't see. And
he's blind.
Spoilers.
Nobody knew this. He's blind.
Yeah. If you haven't watched it, he can't see.
Joke's on you, mister. I can't see.
And then to kind of, wrap it into the character a little better, there's some more recently popular strain of hops that actually have some red berry flavors to them. So they give off some strawberry and some raspberry notes. And so I think what I'd do for Daredevil, so the Hazy IPA, I'm not going to be able to see through it, but to play off the color of his traditional costume as well and kind of work in the red, get some of those red berry fruits in there. Some Bar Rouge hops. Bar Rouge is a French hop that has a very red berry finish to it. The alternative to that would be we could even take this one a step further and go milkshake IPA with it. And hit it with the Bar Rouge hops, hit it with a little bit of lactose, and maybe add some strawberry puree to it to actually turn it red. And then I think we could really nail Daredevil down. You still wouldn't be able to see shit through it, so I think it would still be on.
But the milkshake does bring all the villains to the yard, and Daredevil.
It does bring the making it red.
Milkshakes will bring the kingpins to the yard.
Yes,
that is for sure.
In my fists, they're better than yours.
All right, so the next one on the list, Scarlet Witch. So for anybody that's not super familiar with like the history of the character Scarlet Witch,
this girl,
her background story has been retconned like 6 times. She's had like 4 different background stories that they've bounced back and forth between, and they've tried to use like, she imagined this one and this is her real background. Like there've been all sorts of like,
they didn't know what to do with her for the longest time either. That's why they had to come up with like House of M and all that stuff.
Yeah, and luckily, I think they finally kind of figured out what to do with her. It appears
for now.
Hopefully.
Well, now all these stories are coming. People are finding out all these stories, ourselves included.
Yeah.
So it's very relevant.
Yeah. So with this one, because of the kind of complex history of that character. This one, I wanted to do something that was a little more complex and had some real depth to it, and really kind of challenged you to kind of think about it. But I wanted to also try to, work in some of those color themes as well. So what I ended up coming up with on this one, and this is actually a beer, even if it is not the one that people think we should make off this list, this beer is actually in my brewing schedule within the next year anyway. So this beer is going to get made regardless. So if this beer sounds appealing to you,
if you start to brew this beer around the time that
this one will actually happen. And this one, I've actually been trying to make this beer happen for about a year. And every time it comes up on the brewing schedule, and I think I'm going to get to it, we get an event or something that we have to brew something different for, and it always gets kicked off my calendar. I am brewing this beer sometime this spring. It is going to happen because I want.
I like brewed IPAs. I feel like a lot of them got a bad rap, and I think some people just didn't ever have a good one. Like some of them were absolutely amazing, and then some were all right.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
brewed IPAs are good for a couple of reasons. In I don't think people realize some of these things, and so I'm going to educate people on the brewed IPA style as a whole, because it was a thing for a minute, and then they just like disappeared, and there are only a handful of people that are really still making brews. If you are somewhere that has Old Nation Brewery out of Michigan on distribution, their B43 brewed IPA is one of the best brewed IPAs you'll find.
Yes,
Brewed style, it's delicious. It has this weird thing where sometimes it turns kind of purplish in the can. If you open a purple one, just go on to the next one. Like, get one that's good and clear. But brewed IPAs, so as the name implies, it's an IPA. Brut, for people that are familiar with the champagne world, means dry. So it's a dry finishing IPA. The way you get a beer to finish dry is by making your yeast eat all the residual sugar in the beer. That's a problem because yeast don't like to eat all the sugar. Yeast have a rating on them that's called an attenuation factor that tells you what percentage of sugar they generally eat. Most yeast, even if they're really hungry, are like 80–85%. So there's still going to be a fair amount of residual sugar left over, especially in like a 6 or 7% beer. They're still going to be relatively sweet. So brewed IPAs are made by using those same yeast, but adding an additional enzyme into the fermentation called beta amylase. And what it does is it takes the parts of the sugar that the yeast would not normally break down, breaks them down into a simpler form that the yeast will be like, oh, I missed those, and will ferment them. And so typically what you end up with, if you're measuring beer in gravity, in specific gravity, this is something that Mash should be at least somewhat familiar with now after having done his first brew. So a typical IPA, if you're looking at final gravity, may finish out at like 1.010. And what that means is there's 10 points of residual sugar left. It is not uncommon for brewed IPAs to finish below 1. Like, they're so dry that like they've gone past not having any residual sugar to like you'd have to add sugar to them to bring them back to balance. And so they finish very dry, but that complements hops really well with certain hop flavors. And so brewed IPAs can be a great style. That's not nearly complex enough though for a character like Scarlet Witch. And so what we're going to do is play off another trend that's really starting to pick up in beer and especially in IPAs. And we're going to co-ferment this with grape must. So if you guys are familiar with Cerebral out of Denver, Cerebral does a line of IPAs that are either double or triple IPAs. I mean, they're up there, they're hazy, but they co-ferment them with grape juice. So like the last one I had, I think was Gewürztraminer grapes in an IPA. They're delicious. They're very sweet because they're not brewed IPAs. So for this one, what we would do is use Zinfandel grapes, red Zinfandel grapes. So it's going to do a couple of things. It's going to add some more complexity of flavor to the beer. It's still going to give us a nice dry finish because it's a grape that's kind of intended to finish dry. It's going to give us a little bit of a pinkish red tint to the beer itself because of the grapes we're using. And so I think we're going to end up with something that from a color perspective, kind of lines up well with Scarlet Witch. And then it's just a really deep, complex beer that's going to have all sorts of different flavors into it. And even as it warms up in your glass, the way those flavors present themselves and come out is going to age and change, much like the history of the character has over the course of the last 50 or 60 years. So, this is one, like I said, this beer is getting made regardless.
Listen, this one's on the tap anyways.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I actually did a bit of a brewed IPA beer school for New Year's. Obviously, you know more about every single beer school I've done, but I was surprised to learn that was an enzyme that made it a brewed IPA because a lot of breweries use a champagne yeast.
Yeah.
So are you going to do that as well?
No, we'll probably use one of our standard yeast to it because usually even with a champagne yeast, they still won't always go all the way. So a lot of times you still have to hit them with an enzyme to get them to go. By far the other side to that is champagne yeast produce a flavor that tastes like champagne. They produce a flavor that doesn't necessarily line up with beer. And so, by using the enzymes to do it, you can still use a beer yeast and use something that produces a very traditional beer flavor. You just get it really, really dry. We have a brewery locally in Nashville, East Nashville Brewing. that does a brewed IPA called Brute Willis, which is fantastic.
I love that.
Star of the best Christmas movie ever made, Die Hard.
Die Hard.
Absolutely.
Shout out Die Hard, baby.
But it's a really good beer. And every time I'm up there, I always get one. When Lucky was in town a few weeks ago, we took Lucky to East Nash. He got to see the Brute Willis in person. We also had a grilled cheese pizza that had pickles on it. It was a tomato soup based pizza.
I'm hungry now.
With 5 different types of cheese and pickles. It sounds weird.
No, it sounds amazing.
I'm all on board for this.
Really good.
Cheese, pizza, pickles. I'm in.
I'm taking notes on all this stuff for when we come down to the brewery opening. I'm like, oh, we got to go here. We got to do that.
Oh, dude, when you guys come down, you need to make like a week out of it, and I'll take you around Nashville.
Oh, if we come down, I want to do a brew day. That's one thing. That's like the only thing I ask.
We'll definitely
do a brew day.
Yeah, we will definitely do that. So one more beer on the list. Like we teased earlier, Wolverine.
It's going to be the best at what it does.
For last.
Yeah, so this is one of those that, like, I think it's too easy to look at Wolverine and be like,
get
traditional macho man. Yeah, like it's a Labatt's. Like, just make a Labatt's.
Make it Canadian and a lager.
Ever.
Yeah, like to me that like we can't get that simple. Like, what kind of segment would we have if we went that simple?
Right. So, I even have a shirt that says Canadian Lager with Logan on it.
Yeah, we know exactly. So I started trying to think, like, what are some of the aspects of that character? I mean, the Wolverine character's been around for a long time, and it's had some evolutions in depth for the character. So, what are some of the things from his history and his background, or if you look at his personality and kind of the way he approaches things, like, what are some of the aspects I could pull from that would make sense? And, and then we can work some Canada and we can work some things like that in there. So the thing that really stood out to me, and this is, something that a lot of people may not necessarily always realize with that character, but he has a lot of Japanese things either in his history because he lived in Japan and he was married in Japan, he had a child in Japan. The character itself kind of has that very, like, lone samurai kind of approach to life. So there's a lot of, like, Japanese characteristics in that character. So I started thinking, like, okay, well, the first thought for everybody here would be, let's do a Canadian lager. Well, how about instead of that, we do a Japanese lager? So we do a rice lager. That opens up kind of some new flavor profiles within the beer. There's some ways that we could take that to some other levels too, with maybe like some plums or some kind of botanical in it, just to give it, even a little bit more complexity. But one of the things that we've been playing around with a lot is, and it's something that I really love, and I don't think there are enough of them on the market, is barrel aged lagers. So it's pretty rare that you see a barrel aged lager. And there are a couple of reasons, or
porters.
Yeah, there are a couple of reasons you don't see them very often. So one, lagers already take long enough to make, and the price point on them is usually fairly low. So lager as a beer and as a process, so lagers are cold fermented, so they take longer to ferment typically. And then lagers are lagered, which is the process that gives them their name, which is essentially cold aging of the beer. So depending on the brewery and the type of lager, I mean, they could be anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. We generally age our lagers about 6 to 8 weeks.
I will not be brewing a lager next. I'm way too impatient.
Yeah. So and they have to stay like 50 degrees or below that entire time. So it's 2 weeks of fermentation, 6 to 8 weeks of lagering, all of it in refrigerated conditions. So they take a while. And then when you look at it, lager is one of the cheapest beers on the market. So you put all this work and spend all this time and take up fermentation space for forever just to sell a beer that sells for half of what a stout would.
So don't they last longer?
They hold up well. And they're crisp and clean, and they're good drinking beers, especially when it's hot outside. But when you look at that's why you'll notice a lot of craft breweries don't do lagers at all.
They do. They got that quick turnover.
Yeah, the cost profit, equation that goes on with lagers just doesn't make sense for a lot of people. We will make lagers because I love lagers. And we're also in an area where, even though we have a really good craft beer community, We also have a lot of Bud Light and Coors Light. And
Hell
Michelob
yeah,
Ultra.
brother.
So you have to.
And I got to figure out how to get those people out of the Kroger beer aisle and into my beer.
True.
And the way I do that is by introducing them to lagers. And once they like my lager and they're buying it routinely, I introduce them to a dry hop lager. And then once they like the dry hop, I introduce them to a pale ale. And then I introduce them to an IPA, and I step them through the sequence.
That's business.
And the next thing they know, they're drinking 16% barrel-aged stouts with coconut marshmallow.
And that's how it happens.
That's the Brad system
exactly.
right there. You've heard of the Dennis system.
Exactly.
I mean,
the
that's
Brad system.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. We all went from Budweisers to barrel-aged stouts one way.
Very true. Very true.
So that lager process is already long. So now you add to that you're barrel aging. Well, that beer is going to have to be aged cold in the barrel as well. So now you're talking anywhere from 6, 8, 10, 12, 18 months of a refrigerated barrel sitting around somewhere too. And so that's why you don't see a ton, I think, of barrel-aged lagers. And the few that you see are not going to be what you would traditionally think of as a lager. They're going to be black lagers. So they're going to be either Czech dark lagers.
Are good.
They're going to be Schwarzbiers, German black lagers. Shameless plug for that. We just brewed our Schwarzbier this weekend.
Yes, you did. You told me all about it.
Like roasted beers. It is fantastic. I can't wait for it to be done, but it's got about 2 months left, so it's not going
to be done eventually.
But a lot of times when you do see barrel-aged lagers, it's going to be that kind of lager. It's going to be a dark lager. So I think we could do something interesting here by taking a lighter, rice lager. Like I said, maybe some plum or something in there, some jasmine blossoms, something to just kind of make it interesting. We barrel age it, and there's where we get back to Canada. I think we could get our hands on a Canadian whiskey barrel.
Oh, I think we could.
The Canadians are not necessarily famous for their whiskey, despite what they would tell you. The best whiskey in the world is made either in the state I live in or the state just north of me.
True. Oh, yeah, Kentucky.
They will tell you they make good whiskey, and we'll give it a shot. So I think we could pull down a Canadian whiskey barrel. We slap that Japanese lager in there. Like I said, maybe a hint of plum or jasmine or something to kind of add a unique flavor to it. It's going to take a while if we do that one. I mean, that beer is probably, no kidding, a year in the making to do.
We can serve it with a donut.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it could be cool.
Yeah.
Make it more Canadian.
Yeah,
or
it could be
with
cool.
A bottle of maple syrup.
Yeah, we can serve it in a coffee cup from Tim Hortons.
Yeah. Oh God, I love Timmy.
Oh, there you go.
I love Timmy Hortons
with some poutine.
Maybe the rim can. Oh, that's gross.
God,
I was going to say the rim can have donuts.
You don't like?
Wait, no, you can take the rim of the Hortons, whatever.
Yeah,
do maple syrup on the rim and then put donuts around it.
Oh,
I've never had poutine because I don't eat real meat.
What? Okay,
it's good.
Poutine's delicious.
My mom loves it. She gets it at Epcot when we go in Canada.
I might just mess around and make a maple syrup rim glass here soon, just for the hell of it, because now I'm hungry. It sounds good. It sounds delicious.
Use maple syrup to make stuff stick to it, and then maybe rim it with cinnamon and sugar.
Yeah. Oh, I'm known for my rimming skills.
It'd almost be like cinnamon sugar French toast. Could be
and have a feel lucky moment. Matt's great at rim jobs.
I'm great. I'm great at rim jobs when it comes to beer.
Oh,
ain't nobody better than me.
Well, I stole his idea at Christmas time. He had what beer did you do that with?
I sent you this. It was the Peppermint Bark Golden Stout from Barbarian, which you actually have. I sent it to you.
Yes, it's in my fridge.
So I rimmed it with chocolate.
But what did we do at Christmas time? Which one did
the rim? Oh,
yeah.
Which one did we do? Oh,
and the Ghirardelli peppermint candies.
Yeah, it was.
I don't even remember what beer we did it with
peppermint candies. I did it with the Peppermint Bark, but I don't know which one you did it with.
Oh, then I did it with I did it with Prairie Bomb. That's what I did it. The Christmas.
Oh, yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
It was really good. The bombs are always good, especially the barrel aged versions.
Oh, yeah.
Barrel aged birthday bomb is always one of my favorites. I really like it.
I haven't had a birthday bomb. I need to get one. That's one I haven't done, but I've done the Christmas one every year for the past 4 years.
And then I think it's Pirate Bomb, maybe, is the rum barrel aged one. It's also really good.
I have that one in my fridge. I haven't had it yet, though. Nice.
Yeah. So I guess just to kind of recap, that's our 5. That was the list that Mash gave me. So I figure I can run back through real quick and just kind of quick recap for everybody before we put it to the will of the masses. So Aquaman was our coconut lime curry goza. Flash was our American red ale made with Kavaikis. Daredevil was our hazy IPA with our red fruit hops thrown in there and potentially some lactose and strawberry to turn it to a milkshake.
I think that was
Scarlet Witch was our brewed IPA co-fermented with Zinfandel grapes. And then Wolverine was our barrel-aged Japanese lager with that good old Canadian whiskey barrel, and maybe some plum or some jasmine thrown in there to help it punctuate.
I know I texted you this earlier, Brad. The Aquaman one, like my favorite so far. I'm just gonna say my favorite so far. It's the Daredevil. However,
yeah, me too.
I had like a good art idea for Aquaman, but again, I can't draw. I wanted him like riding, like dolphins, like skis, on the ocean, and then in the background, it's like a knockoff Aquaman, of course, because you don't want to get sued. Knockoff Aquaman riding a couple of dolphins like skis in the water with like a lighthouse behind him, because that's like Arthur Curry, Maine, all that kind of stuff. So if somebody listens to this and they can draw, and I feel like drawing up something,
all right, I got you. I'm
draw
gonna
me
do
that,
it
because I feel like that'd be great can art for that beer. However, my personal favorite's the Daredevil one.
And Daredevil also goes with the theme of your brewery.
It does.
And it's my favorite style.
We're gonna.
I will say
Oldie's my favorite character, but the Hazy's my favorite style.
It is.
So like I said earlier, so the Scarlet Witch one is definitely on our brewing calendar. So if you plan on voting in this poll, don't bother voting for Scarlet Witch.
Should we put the Scarlet Witch? Yeah, I'll put it out anyways.
Because she's happening anyways.
Because guess what? It's going to happen anyways.
We can do like ranked choice voting, and Scarlet
That's
Witch
true.
can be the number.
That is true. We can do ranked choice.
I will be honest. So the Aquaman Goza, and I texted Mash this the other day. I have actually started. So most of these are just concepts. The Scarlet Witch one does have a recipe already created, and I have actually started to create a recipe for the Aquaman Goza, because everybody that I talk about that beer thinks it sounds awesome.
Sound amazing.
And so I'm like, well, I thought I was just kind of being weird about it, but everybody I talk to wants to drink it, so I'll
try anything twice. So if I don't even care if it has curry, and I'll try it.
No, and I love the concept of Aquaman and a Goza, because it's salt and coriander is the main thing that makes a Goza. But instead of holding the Triton, maybe he can be holding a Scales of Justice.
Yeah, he can. You don't have to have a Trident. Like I said, we need to have him a knockoff. He's
an environmental
Aquaman.
Attorney.
He has to be a knockoff. So yeah, he could be like a scepter, but it's like a gavel at the end.
Yeah, I don't want to see from DC.
Yeah, we're just trying to get started. We don't need to see,
Yeah, I don't want to C&D from DC.
I would like Brad's
like when you
brewery
see the really bad Mickey paintings on the side of daycares, like, they intentionally made it look like garbage so that Disney wouldn't come and sue them.
Yeah, not like that guy in, where was it, like Indiana or whatever, that was using the actual Milk Duds logo on his beer. And it was like, I don't know why they sued me.
Gee, I can only imagine.
What's interesting is the Disney font is not protected, so you can use Disney font.
Yeah.
Ooh, good to know.
I did know that, because I actually have that font in my Photoshop.
There you go. I have it on my silhouette. I don't sell anything, so it doesn't matter. But
Brad,
I don't really.
All right.
We really appreciate you joining us. We're gonna get these out to a vote, and we're gonna make this happen. This is great, and like I said, it's always great talking to you. I'm sure I'll be texting you tomorrow or something. And thank you for coming on. Anytime you want to come on. You bring a lot of knowledge that we don't have. So always.
Well, and where can people find you and your brewery? Oh yeah, you're a freaking encyclopedia of beer knowledge. It's amazing. But yes, where can we find you in Common Law?
Yeah, if you wanna follow along with us and see what other craziness I'm making, like the Sour Patch Kid beer I just put out, or the huge barrel aged stout we just released. The best places to follow along with us are Facebook and Instagram. So you can find us on Facebook, obviously, if you just search for Common Law Brewing Company. And then we're on Instagram at Common Law Brewing. We also have a website, commonlawbrewingco.com. We'll normally put information out on our website on occasion. The reason I would direct people to the website, though, especially if you're in my area, we keep a mailing list. And if you join that mailing list, anytime we release a new beer, we randomly draw names from that mailing list, and we just give people free beer. So because we aren't fully set up, we don't have our licenses in place, I can't sell beer. I can definitely still make beer and share it with people, so you guys get a chance to sample what we're doing. So follow along with us on social media. Definitely join the mailing list. Keep an eye out for new beers we have coming out, new merch we have coming out. Follow along with our story on how we're coming along towards opening. If you want to follow what I'm drinking personally, I'm on Untapped. My username on there, I think, is BES753. I don't check in a ton of beers. I definitely do not check in anywhere near the number of beers I drink because I get a lot of like sample pours of stuff from people. So, if I go to something where I'm sampling and I drink 25 or 30 different samples, I might check in one of them.
Right.
And so
yeah.
my Untapped looks fairly paltry, even though I'm drinking new beer.
Just know he's drinking great new beers.
I think the only beer that I've drank, the only beers that I've drank more than one of, I think, in the past 6 months, there are a couple of Pontoon beers. I definitely had a couple of Franken Smiggles, which was their strawberry milkshake version of Smiggles. I definitely had a couple of Blueberry Smiggles, which was their blueberry milkshake version of Smiggles. Their Duck Duck Donut, which is a blueberry lemon pecan donut sour. It actually has donuts in it. Like they made it with legit donuts from Duck Donut.
I love Duck Donuts too.
God, it's so good. It's so good. And then they did a raspberry donut to follow that up, which is also really good. And then Spotted Cow. I think those are the only beers that I've had more than one of in the
every Sunday. Go Pack, go!
Lucky brought me a 12-pack of Spotted Cow when he came down.
I'm about to be out right now because football season's wrapping up. But oh god, Spotted Cow! Don't even get me started.
Yeah. So you guys can definitely follow along with the brewery. Feel free to add me on Untapped if you're on there, and see what beers I don't check in. And if you happen to find yourself in the Nashville area, let us know. I'm always up for grabbing a beer and talking the industry with people if people want to learn. Obviously, with my background in the start, from my side being in the home brewing community, I'm still very tied into that community. And like Nash said earlier, I love to help people learn about beer and love to help people learn to make beer.
It's going to be in 10 years. I'm due to retire from my current job in 10 years. And who knows, maybe I'll be working marketing for some brewery. And that was Brad again, Common Law Brewing. We are going to do a live show potentially at Brad's, or it's not just Brad. I have never met Mark yet, so I don't know him. So it's
the invisible partner.
Anyways, Common Law Brewing, hopefully in the summer, we're going to hopefully be there and do a first ever live show of Hops Geek News and Hops News. And maybe the Hop Heroes guys might be able to join us for maybe another live trivia night for that one. Cause I know they've mentioned they'd be down to come too. So I'll talk with them about that. However,
yeah, that was too much fun.
It was, God, so much fun. Those dudes, great dudes. I'm like 7 hours away from them. So if I get up to Washington, I'll have to hit them up and go from there. However, next week we have Woodland Empire Part 2. They're on again. And Rob and Keeley, really great people. They're on their 7th anniversary as a brewery here in Boise. And they're brewing a lot of great beers right now. Their artwork. Check out our Instagram, Hops Geek News. You can see some pictures from that brewery. And if you're going to be watching on YouTube next week, my background is going to be right inside that brewery as though I'm broadcasting from it. And Turn Up the Beats. That's become my wife's favorite beer. I told them that they can never stop brewing it because that is like her all-time favorite beer now.
I'm very excited to drink this.
Took over Spotted Cow. That's high praise. I didn't think it was bad, but she loved it. So I told them, and I'm going to tell them again in person when I talk to them, don't you discontinue that beer. I'll go pick beets if I have to.
What are you, Dwight Schrute?
Yes.
I got a bunch of their beer now, courtesy of MASH. So I'm very excited to drink all this beer and talk to them.
I can't wait. So Hops Geek News, and be sure to like, subscribe, share, help us grow. And
love us.
Just love us. My mom didn't love me, so please, somebody love us. I know there's a bunch of other geek podcasts out there.
My mom loves me, but I still need the podcast love.
I'll develop a stuttering problem.
All right, Frankenstein.
And Geek Hops, search Hops Geek News on Twitter. We're there. New episodes drop Tuesdays. And shout Pontoon if you can see that. And also Dissolver Black is beautiful. Cheers, everybody. Until next time.
Cheers.
This has been a Hops News production. You can find Hops News on all your favorite podcasts and social media platforms at Hops News. Cheers.